Hello and welcome to the week that really was with John McGurk and Sarah Ryan for this week ending Friday the 14th of November 2025. It's been a busy week. We've had economic warnings about the state of Ireland's health. We'll get to those. We've had media calamities, crises and all sorts of problems in both the UK and Ireland. We've had a Vogue article telling young women that they shouldn't have boyfriends, and we've had the government launching a new housing strategy. We will get to all of those topics over the course of the next hour or so. But first, I am joined, as I always am, by my friend, my colleague, and this week's Phoenix Magazine page 3 girl, Sarah Ryan. How are you?
I'm fine. Why are they so obsessed with me, John? I'm turning into the new you.
Yes, you are. You've a while to go. You've a while to go before you're caught up there.
And mine are a bit nicer. Mine are a bit nicer than yours, I think, my comment.
That is true. That is true. Well, it's female privilege. That's what that is. Female privilege.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, a lot of things happened this week, but I'm going to start on the international stage because I'm fascinated, as I'm sure you are, by this whole BBC Donald Trump kerfuffle, where they've misleadingly edited the Panorama program. They've basically painted Trump as saying on January 6, 2021, I guess it was, that, people should go to the Capitol and fight. And they did that by splicing two different lines from his speech together to create a whole new sentence that the man never said. They've gotten caught. The Director General has had to resign. Heads are rolling. There's a controversy. The Irish Times are very upset about it. They think it's a terrible blow to the BBC and faith in media. Don't seem too worried about the misinformation and the disinformation emerging from the BBC. I'm just wondering what you make of it all.
I mean, I think that the people's belief in the mainstream media is in the toilet already. I didn't think it could have gone much further. But we're constantly told in Ireland, when the debate about the licence fee comes up, that we need state broadcasting, whatever. I don't see, in the last 10 years in particular, obviously I don't have any evidence of that distinctive splicing a video to make something, but I think that RTE is an unbelievably biased media. I don't think we have a media that serves our interests at all either. And so I think it's funny to see people talking about the BBC and how it's disgrace and it's this and it's that or whatever, when we don't have much different here. Am I surprised? No, but I think that the level that it was done to was quite shocking.
Well, RTE during the presidential inauguration this week, and obviously, all hail Comrade Connolly, should play the Russian national anthem or something there for comedic effect, but we won't do that. Comrade Connolly, our new first citizen, was inaugurated on Tuesday, and RTE were covering the event, and they had their Twitter account, the main RTE One Twitter account, put out a footage of the former president, the dearly departed and much missed Michael D. Higgins, walking down the aisle to his successor's inauguration. And they put out a tweet saying, "We're not crying, you're crying," with like a whole bunch of crying emojis like a teenager might use in text message. And it was one of those things where I even saw Ronan McGreevy from the Irish Times tweeting, "This is entirely inappropriate for a national broadcaster to be sending out." And it was like they either don't know or they don't care that this guy left office with a 65% approval rating, which is good but historically low for a president. And there's a lot of people in the country who weren't crying. But the thing is that you're not supposed to have an opinion either way. Yeah,
you're the state broadcaster, so obviously this isn't going to happen. But in theory, let's supposing Michael D goes back and starts doing punditry or something for the Labour Party again. Are we to assume that RTE will be completely unbiased? Do you know what I mean? You can't do that. You just stay out of it. You're supposed to be neutral. And that is what we're told. That neutrality and that unbiased reporting is what we're constantly told we need so hard. And that's why we need the broadcasting fee. But we don't get it. We get this shite. And it's a 15-year-old running the Twitter account.
Seemed that way. Well, maybe those staff cuts are biting. But you know what? A lot of people will say, and I think it's fair to address this, a lot of people will say, well, John and Sarah, you're hypocrites. John, you're the editor of Gript. Sarah, you're a member of the team. And you sit here every week and you tell us your opinions and you're clearly partisan. You hold of you. To which I say, yeah, but there's a difference when you're the national broadcaster because we don't ask, people.
I don't think anyone's thick enough to make that comparison, though.
Some people
if they are, good luck to them.
Some people will be. The thing is, if I was getting 165 quid a year from every taxpayer in the country, I would have an obligation to be impartial and fair. and RTÉ doesn't seem to think it is. I mean, it's not only I mean, this was also the week of Holly Kearns is in the House. Did you see that the Social Democratic Party leader
So here's
was on
another
the Late
tweet.
Late Show last week?
Yeah, go on. Another tweet from the state broadcaster.
Well, it's not just the tweet; it's the fact that the interview was so soft that you could use it to advertise luxury toilet paper.
But
like,
okay, fine. Well, that's one element of it, John. And the other element of it is that why is Holly Kearns there at all? Why is Maria Steen not on the Late Late Show? Why is Pater Tobin not on the Late Late Show? Why is Pater Tobin not on the Late Late Show?
Well, it's a reasonable question. It's a reasonable question.
Seriously,
Or Michael Collins.
Why is it? Or Michael Collins. Why is it? Or even people who are for profit. Whatever his
you know
name.
what I think is very funny?
No, but the point is, John, that the point is though that like it's the same. It's like, you know, clutching at pearls. The tweet was Holly Kearns is in the building. It's nauseating. It's like this transition year students running the social media.
Do you not think that? Do you not think, in fairness, do you not think it's not? There's a little bit of female privilege there as much as there is ideological privilege, because like you're Holly Kearns, you're a good looking woman. No one's going to deny she's a good looking woman. She was on with her hair and her smile and like, you know, she's a new mother, and there's human interest, kind of like, Holly, what do you like to do at home? You know, what's your favorite kind of baked goods? You know, what kind of, you know, what do you do? No one's going to bring Michael Collins from Independent Ireland on and sit him down and kind of go, and you know, what would you watch now for daytime TV make? You know, that's not going to happen.
Farmer's Journal. but why not?
Well,
I mean, of course, there's an element of female privilege to it, John. Fine, but there's not. Don't be naive. It's not just female privilege. It's also that she says the right things about the right. Because I guarantee you, if she was as pretty as the most beautiful woman in the world, and she was baking apple pies every afternoon, but she was a dirty right winger like you or me, she wouldn't be next nor near Montrose, and you know it, and I know it.
Well, that's true. I mean,
it's not
in fairness,
just the female good-looking thing. It's also that she has the right views on all the right things.
In fairness, Mrs. Steen is a good example of that, actually, because there's a woman now with a bit of female privilege herself, not a bad-looking woman, you know, a lot of human interest in her. Like, you know, you'd get the Bachelor farmers tuning in, I'm sure, to watch an interview with her, and she's not there.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're right. It's not only female privilege. It's not. But yeah, it's just it's the kind of RTÉ is for us thing. I was looking at Kathy Sheridan, who wrote an article in the Irish Times going back to the BBC issue with Trump, and she was horrified. She was horrified that the BBC could make such a mistake and give Donald Trump such a win. That was it. She wasn't actually horrified by the misinformation or the disinformation itself. It was like, how could they do this? How could they make such a silly mistake and hand in such a club to beat them with? It's the old narrative of right-wingers pounce. It's not the left did something wrong. It's not the BBC did something wrong. It's that the right-wingers are pouncing on it, and that's the new story. It's now a conspiracy against the BBC. Like you know, Nigel Farage went in there and told them how to cut up Panorama. You know, they did it voluntarily because they thought they'd get away with it. And I think what's really interesting about it, Sarah, is that they thought they'd get away with it because they didn't think they were being dishonest. So in the heads of the BBC producers in Panorama, they're not even lying to you when they stitch two different Donald Trump quotes together to create a whole sentence. They're just telling you the truth as they see it in a simplified fashion. It's news based on the news. That's what you're getting. It's a fictionalized version of the news that accords with their prejudices. And this is the clearest example of it happening, but it happens right across the media all the time. The Irish Times have a story. So I'm on a bit of a rant, but the Irish Times have a story today about Richard Boyd Barrett standing up in the Oireachtas kind of going, there's a man who's been here for 19 years and he's now facing deportation. And this is shocking. He's been here, he's had a family and all the rest of it, and it's really cruel. And the Irish Times have given this complete prominence, of course, without any kind of critical analysis. I mean, first of all, if it was somebody who evaded taxes for 19 years, you wouldn't kind of go, well, he has a family and it's very difficult. You'd say, no, the law has to apply. So it's all ideologically driven to give you the news through a particular perspective. I mean, most people listening to this podcast know it, but this week's been a great example of it.
Yeah, I just think the Late Late Show in particular obviously has become more and more of a farce, and that's not just my opinion. That's also demonstrated in the falling figures of people who actually watch the shite. And I know they need to give Mary Robinson and Daniel O'Donnell and Magella a week or two off, but the fact of the matter is that they shouldn't be having somebody like a party leader like her on unless they're going to do something similar for other people. I don't think that she's big enough of a politician. I don't think there's anything newsworthy about her. And I think that the way that they were cheerleading and fangirling her was nauseating. And how do we ever expect them to be taken seriously when they're putting or expect them to have any real depth to putting under her and her policies under scrutiny when it comes to an election time?
Well, this is the other thing that they do, actually, and this is something that people might not notice, but it's very important to understand it in terms of how RTE and the media book guests in such a way to create ideological bias. So say you're a Sarah Ryan, feminist academic, lawyer, activist on the issues. You will be brought on to RTE to be interviewed, when there's a debate that's relevant, women in the home, abortion, gay marriage. But you will also be brought on in other lighter contexts. You'll be brought on to give your opinion on a whole range of other stories. You'll be presented as a broad, in the round human being across a range of programming so that the public gets to know and trust you. And they'll do that. Take a great example of this is Alison O'Connor, the journalist. And then imagine that you are David Quinn, head of the Ione Institute. You will only ever be brought on when it is to talk about the issue that you are the villain on. So you'll only be brought on if there's an actual referendum or debate, and then you're put in a pigeonhole. So it is created over several years where you have Sarah Ryan, liberal academic, feminist, who you all know, trust, and is a beacon of common sense in a whole range of issues, and you probably know all about her life. And here's David Quinn, ogre, to be debated against. And that's a way they create the narrative. They do it all the time, which is one of the reasons why people like me or people like you or people like Maria Steen are never given the Late Late Show couch treatment. And if you are, by the way, you are subjected to the most horrendous interrogation. I'll never forget Peter Casey, after the last presidential election, was basically brought on by Ryan Tubridy, who used to have two settings, puppy dog and Rottweiler, or I should say Jack Russell Terrier, not Rottweiler, because he wasn't that scary. But, and I remember that night he had Mary Robinson on and she got the puppy dog treatment. I mean, how are you so wise and great? And then he brought on Peter Casey, and Peter Casey got the URR, would you not accept it? You're a racist and a bigot, stirring up the worst in the in the Irish. And it's relentless. It's relentless. And
he got him on for his scolding.
Yeah, his scolding. And if you watch behind the scenes, when some guests come on, there are floor managers there telling the audience to clap, clap somebody on. And then if you have an interview with a controversial person who they don't like, the floor manager won't be there telling the audience to clap. That person will be greeted with silence. They are brilliant at it. All the things they do behind the scenes to influence how the public see the world. I mean, if the public understood them, they'd never watch it again. But unfortunately, the public don't understand. I mean, I think they're slowly beginning to understand.
I'm shocked in the last year by the people who I would consider to be quite mainstream who would tell me that RTE is a propaganda wing of the government and liars, basically.
Anyway, Donald Trump obviously had that week where the BBC were at him. He's also had this week, and I wanted to, because you and I have a disagreement on this. He's also had this week where the House Oversight Committee, which is controlled by the Republican Party, by the way, has released a whole series of Epstein documents. And they are basically confirmation from Epstein's own mouth that Trump spent loads of time with the girls, including apparently with Virginia Giuffre, one of the alleged victims.
Who said that he was really nice and he never did anything to her, did she not?
Yeah, but I don't think Virginia Giuffre can be trusted on anything. She also said that Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer, hold on a second. She also said that Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer, abused her for years, and then she said that was completely wrong, case of mistaken identity. I got somebody else, and then obviously she made her accusations against Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the former Duke of York, which people believe to be true. But the woman was not a particularly reliable witness on anything, and she also, it has to be said, remember, worked for Donald Trump. She was Donald Trump's employee before she was Jeffrey Epstein's squeeze. Epstein actually hired her directly from Mar-a-Lago, where she was working in the year 2000, to go and entertain. I think she was a summer job there, and he took her to entertain his guests. So she has a relationship with Donald Trump that predates her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
I mean, all I can say is that I think an email that says that vaguely mentions Donald Trump as being, whatever it describes him as, the Epstein stuff has been going on. None of it holds water legally. I
No,
don't
none of it
think
holds water legally
like
for anybody. Like, there's no
no,
way
it
to
never
convict
has.
it. But
But
like,
it's like,
you know,
but the thing is, it comes back. It's kind of like what you say, and look, we don't know, and the public probably will never know, right, about who did what when it comes to Epstein. It's just going to be one of those things that people's names. There was flight logs that had all these different names and whatever, and it's just going to be that kind of thing that people use when it suits them, when it's suitable, when it's against somebody they don't like. It's suddenly the truth, the word, and the truth and the law. And when it's against somebody they don't like, they just poo-poo it as being nonsense. And that's the way it's always going to be. And the issue I have with that is that from the Democrats' point of view, and from a lot of the people in Ireland who would be supporters of the Democrats and whatever, who would have literally been kind of drooling at the idea of Hillary and stuff like that, they conveniently forget that her husband was having an affair, a sexual affair with an intern while he was in office, that there was multiple accusations against him, that Hillary came out about one of those women and basically demeaned and humiliated that woman and called her a liar in public. You know, it's like when it suits, it's ignored. And when it's not, so that was all okay. And Hillary was sound on the female question. But an email is enough for Donald Trump. I just think it's farce.
yeah, that's all true. Everything you say about Hillary Clinton is true. Everything you say about Bill Clinton is true. But I mean, like, with Trump, like, the evidence of a connection between him and Epstein by itself is not insubstantial. And the evidence to raise eyebrows at Donald Trump elsewhere is not insubstantial. I mean, if I run through it very briefly, first of all, in relation to Epstein, he flew with Epstein 7 times in the mid-1990s. He apparently met Melania on a flight with Jeffrey Epstein. He was, when the first woman ever to make a complaint against Jeffrey Epstein in the 1990s went into the FBI. One of her original statements was that she'd encountered Donald Trump on many occasions in Jeffrey Epstein's company, and that Jeffrey Epstein on several occasions had to tell Donald Trump that she, quote, wasn't for her. That was evidence given under oath long before Donald Trump became a politician, so that you can doubt it, but you can't say there was a political motive for it. Jeffrey Epstein was a member of the Palm Beach club that Donald Trump was part of. He hired girls from there to go and work for him, including one of them I mentioned is Regina Giuffre, who ended up apparently being pimped out to Prince Andrew. Donald Trump says that when Epstein took Giuffre from his office, that he was very, very angry with Jeffrey Epstein, didn't speak to him for years. But then in 2002, he said, I like Jeffrey Epstein. He's a great guy. He likes women, some of them very, very on the younger side. And we're supposed to believe that Donald Trump didn't know about any of this, of course, but he said in 2002 he likes women on the younger side. And then, of course, there are innumerable photographs of the two of them together. So I'm saying in relation to Epstein alone, there's far more evidence of Donald Trump's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein than there is in relation to Prince Andrew. That's the first thing. And secondly, then, I think you have to look at the wider context as well, which is that Donald Trump is a man who 28 separate women have made allegations of sexual misconduct against, 28 separate ones. Now, you can believe that some of them are liars. You can believe possibly that all of them are liars, which seems to me to be a long shot, but you can believe that all of them are liars. And then finally, he is on tape saying that when you're rich and famous, women will let you do anything they want, including grabbing them by the pussy. So I do think, Sarah, on balance, that if you were looking at this objectively and not from a partisan point of view, there is reason to be skeptical of the President of the United States on relation to this issue. And I think it's an important story because the people who talk about this issue always say that they speculate it may have involved blackmail, it may have involved all kinds of geopolitical participants, etc., etc. So I think if you look at the totality of the evidence, I think people on the political right who are eager to write this off are making an error.
I don't think I'm eager to write it off. I haven't really heard anything. There's lots of kind of vagueness there. But like, did he know him? Yeah. Did he go on the plane with him? Yeah. I've seen articles and things online about those flight logs. Loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of people went. Loads of people. So I mean, show me actual evidence. Show me actual evidence of this. Like, I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a nice guy or that he's a real, chivalrous gentleman who's really good to women. I'm just saying that, like, show me the evidence.
Well, there's no hard evidence against anybody. This is the thing.
There was actual hard evidence against Bill Clinton. And then he lied to the public and said he did not have sexual relations with his intern. And then it turned out that he did. And then
Yes,
everybody, but my point is that where's the outrage and the shock by women who talk about the sexually explicit or vulgar things that Donald Trump says and the accusation against him? Where is their outrage? When Hillary Clinton was running for president, there was nobody like her.
I don't care about their outrage.
But it's not about. But it's not. No, but
I know. I'm gonna get annoyed with you now because in general, this is one thing I really don't like. It's the other side. The other side are hypocrites, so we should be hypocrites too. No, yeah, absolutely. Liberals for years looked the other way at Bill Clinton abusing women, getting blowjobs, lying about it, carrying on like a toxic male, as they would say today. And once he was in power, they didn't give a shit. And then, but people on the right don't get to do that. They don't get to turn around and kind of go, well, turnabout's fair play. No, we don't give a shit.
No, but I'm not saying I don't give a shit. I'm saying show me the same standard of evidence and I'll write him off completely.
Look, as I said, in relation to Epstein, there's no hard evidence against anybody. But the circumstantial, for example, Donald Trump wants us to believe. He wants us to believe that the drawing in Epstein's book, the one where he wished him a happy birthday and signed his signature, approximating female pubic hair, and said that he wants to have a lovely time and magical adventures. That's in the book beside a similar message from Peter Mandelson, Bill Clinton, and a whole range of business figures. Donald Trump is the only person on Earth, the only person on planet Earth, who claims that drawing is a forgery. It was inserted. Bill Clinton wrote an equally sleazy letter. He doesn't deny it. Mandelson doesn't deny it. Trump is the only person who expects us to believe that him alone had his message inserted into that, even though everything else matches in the public record. The flights, the friendship, the hiring people from his club, the socializing together for years, and all the other public messages. And in 2002 saying he likes women on the younger side. And now he's pretending he didn't know anything about it and somebody forged his signature. Give me a fucking break with this guy. The stuff that we're expected to believe in the service of partisan credulity. If your political beliefs in defending a political candidate, regardless of their right, left, or centre, depends on me pretending to be an idiot, I'm getting off the train. That's all I'm saying.
But it's not pretending to be an idiot, John. It's not. None of that is evidence. Evidence of what? That he went there. That he's a bit of a sleazebag. Sure, we knew that already.
Well, look, there's no evidence against anybody.
That he had that they had sex with underage. That he had sex with a minor.
My accusation is that he has not been forthcoming about the full extent of his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, which is the same accusation, the exact same accusation, it should be noted, Sarah, which has led to the demise of a prince of the United Kingdom, who's lost all his honours for the exact same purpose. There's absolutely no evidence of any kind against Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, but there's the exact same kind of circumstantial evidence as there is against Donald Trump. There's no difference between the two. And so what I'm saying is, I think if it is incumbent upon the Duke of York, as he was, to be open about his relationship, then it's also incumbent on Bill Clinton, it's also incumbent on Donald Trump, and it's also incumbent on other people. And by the way, I'm also saying this because for years and years and years, when Joe Biden was in office, all I used to see online was release the Epstein files, let them out. Let's see what's in the Epstein files. Now they're coming out, and those same people are looking the same way, going, "Oh, nothing to see here." Give me a break. All right, you thought about it for long enough.
There's no evidence, and what you think is I'm saying there's no evidence because I like Donald Trump more than I care about the evidence. That's not true at all. I don't give a shit either way. I just don't see any evidence. I'm not cheerleading for poor old Andrew either. I could care less. His daddy's booting him out. That's his problem.
That is true. All of that is true.
Or his brother.
Look,
sorry.
I care about the equal application of the evidence. But what I don't like is all these people, and you see it online all the time. Oh, Mossad have compromat and all these people left, right, and centre, or the KGB, or whoever it is. But it's always Mossad, by the way. It's always the perfidious Jews are alleged to have compromat people. And then this is the one guy who's in the most powerful job in the world, who's got an actual connection to this guy who for years you have been telling us there's a conspiracy there. And as soon as it comes out, it reminds me of, do you remember that TV series Westworld where they were all computers? And you realize they were computers because they were programmed not to notice certain things. And if somebody was put in front of them that was like plain as your nose on the face, there's 2 + 2 here and an equal sign. They don't say 4, they say doesn't look like anything to me. And
Right.
that's what a lot of this stuff reminds me of. And I just think in general, I'm not afraid to be a heretic on this. I think on the political right, we can't do what the political left did for years, which is be hypocrites. And I think if you've got a sign on a piece of paper that says 2 + 2 and an equal sign, you don't kind of go, I don't know, somebody have to do that. So I'm not sure there's enough there to go up with the answer. That's what I think. Anyway.
I mean, look, I'm not saying it, but there will be people in the comments who will say that you're having a terrible flare-up of the LTDS this week.
Well, that's what they'll say. Of course, that's what they'll say.
I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that you might be accused of that. But sure, look.
Well, I will be accused of it because TDS has become. It's another example. It's another example of what I'm talking about. The instinct. The instinct to do that doesn't look like anything to me. I mean, my partisan brain is switched on.
I know, but you didn't care that
TDS.
you didn't care that much about the Epstein files being released when Joe Biden was there. You hate Donald Trump more than you liked or hated Joe Biden.
No, that's absolutely not true. I think Donald Trump has done an awful lot of really good things as president. I think he's done some very silly things.
No, but I mean, you weren't. The reason why people are going to say it's CDS, John, is because you weren't disanimated about the Epstein files when it was him, when it was Joe Biden.
Well, Joe Biden was never implicated in them, but I certainly was in relation to Clinton. Like I think the book on Bill Clinton hasn't been written. I think the full extent of his involvement. I mean, people forget. Like, do you remember the painting that Epstein had in his possession of Bill Clinton in a dress and heels? That was. Did you ever see it? Oh. Yeah, he's got this. He's literally got a painting of Bill Clinton dressed in drag.
Turns out he's the secret source of all this trans shite.
Yeah, I think the stuff on Clinton that has yet to come out is, I think probably quite frightening.
Dark.
So no, it's not a partisan thing. I also it has to be noted that there are a lot of people like Alan Dershowitz is one such person who've been completely maligned and falsely accused in all of this. So I think the whole thing is a mess. I think we'll probably never know exactly what Epstein's motives were, whether he was just a perv, whether he was blackmailing people, what it was. I just don't think we'll ever know. But I do think that you've got to look at it. You've got to look at all of it and draw your own conclusion. And I certainly have a conclusion in mind when it comes to the current president of the United States and his history. Anyway, we've done enough on that. We've gone for ages now. We're nearly half an hour into the podcast, and we haven't talked at all about what we said we were going to talk about, which is Denis O'Brien and John Collison, both of whom have said, Sarah, that the country is on a fast track towards bust town.
Oh, isn't that cheerful? I think John Collison wrote an article, what was it now, 2 weeks ago? Would it be?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't discuss it on the podcast at the time, and I think a lot of the things that he was saying would be things that have been said on this podcast quite a few times, which is a criticism of Ireland's failure to deliver large capital projects on time and on time and on budget, and that we're just not good at that kind of thing. And I think that that's very much in line with what Denis O'Brien is saying. As I said, I can't even remember what we were talking about earlier on the phone, and I was saying let's put that up on the shelf with the Metro and the Children's Hospital. Like, we just are crap at delivery of these kind of things, and we pump money into a health service. We're wasting money. The red tape and the delays and the complete absolute difficulty with getting anything over the line in terms of housing or whatever is a disgrace. And I think that people like Denis O'Brien, like him or love him, or Collison, who manage larger capital, larger amounts of money, bigger infrastructural projects. I know Denis O'Brien does lots of things abroad in Jamaica and stuff like that. They see it. They don't understand. Why was I mean, you remember during COVID, like, and I'm obviously not suggesting the same, but do you remember during COVID you used to see these videos online of Chinese, like, people building a hospital in like a week?
Yeah.
Now, maybe it was a temporary hospital and whatever, but like, we are not good at this, and we waste a lot of money, and we do not do procurement properly, and we don't have the skill set internally in Ireland to do a lot of the stuff we do. I don't disagree with
Well,
anything that Denis O'Brien or Collison has said. In fact, it's actually speaking my language.
Well, speaking my language too, but I mean, the problem is here that, like, I thought the Collison article was just an absolute classic example of kind of modern Ireland, where it came out. And I don't know if you saw this, but Simon Harris tweeted it. Oh, very, very thought-provoking, very,
Yeah.
very, very important article. Other politicians did a bit of chin stroking, they choked this chin. They shook their heads, they nodded. It was very thought-provoking. Because obviously they can't insult Collison. He's a very wealthy businessman and successful, so they have to go, very thought-provoking, very important contribution to the national conversation. And then, of course, like, or he will have done they'll have done a drive time segment on it. They'll have discussed it on Morning Ireland. They'll have had Gavin Jennings on his very serious tone of voice talking about like the issues raised in this article by John Collins. And they talked about it for about a week. And then everyone was like, right, we've talked about that now. We'll move on. And not a single action point was taken. And it's the same with, poor old Denis O'Brien is out this week. He's out this week, right? And he's saying, the country is on a track towards serious bankruptcy, basically. The next economic downturn is coming. We have a massively inflated public sector. We can't build anything. This is all, the red lights are flashing on the dashboard. Can we change the direction of the car? And I'm here to tell you, Dennis, if you're listening, number one, you're corrupt. And number two, it's not going to happen. No one is going to change the direction of the car until it's been crashed. The car will have to crash. And then 2011, when we had the old national conversations after everything had been crashed, that's what will happen. So it's not going to improve because these guys haven't the first notion how to improve it. Am I wrong?
I love, though, about Collison, like his article, would be, as far as I am aware, probably his first time ever dipping his toe into the Irish media in a political sense. And you'd have to laugh, I'm sure, if he's, I don't know him at all, but like, I'm sure if he's a normal human being, he probably thought, when it got all this attention right at the beginning, like, oh my God, the switchboards are lighting up. Oh my God, and then just kind of can't really compute why it just sort of pissed away after a week or so. And then that was the end of that.
Yeah. Today we had this is this country down to a T. We're just about to talk about this and meld the two topics together. But today, obviously, we've had the launch of the National Housing Strategy. And we've had the launch of the National Housing Strategy on a day when James Brown, the Minister for Housing, the guy in charge of it, wasn't even in the country.
No, he went on the radio this morning. Was he in or out of the country when he did that?
I don't know.
Can I just ask, because this podcast, the week that really was, is a combination of politics and whatever, and everybody who listens and events will say cultural and whatever societal events, and we always talk about things like political strategy and things. We've both been involved in campaigns or whatever. I find it fascinating how bad and how mad it is that Fianna Fáil would have the housing minister, which is the most contentious department at the moment, you would probably fairly say, in Ireland. Housing is on the lips of everybody in Ireland. It's the biggest damaging. It's mentioned in by Denis O'Brien. It's mentioned in that article about as the thing that's holding the economy back. So you could say it's a pretty big deal. And it is wild to me that somebody in Fianna Fáil press office or in the housing department or people who are on salaries and paid to be strategists and to decide when to do what, where, when, that they would think it was a good idea to launch a housing policy into the mainstream media on a day when the housing minister is not going to be in the country. That is mad to me.
Well, I'm often reminded that this government has hired, coming back to our earlier conversation about the media, this government has hired how many journalists to run media affairs for it? You've got Hugh O'Connell, formerly of the Irish Independent. He's there advising the Taoiseach. You've got, the roundy-faced lad who used to present News Talk Breakfast all those years ago. Also, your Fine Gael advisor. You got a bunch of them advising Fianna Fáil. And all these lads in the media, who used to be in the media, who are there for their expertise in media management, all of them on massive salaries, all of them on massive, like not one of these lads is on 5 figures.
It's sub 100 grand. Yeah.
Well, not one of them kind of went, are we going to have the housing minister at this? Not one of them. Like, look, if you're sitting listening to this podcast, you might think, okay, well, I don't really care whether the housing minister was at the launch or is in the country or not. And that is true. You don't. But if you're launching your housing strategy, as somebody who used to do communications for a living, and some people would say not very well, but I did for a living, what you don't want are what are called process stories, right? You want the story to be, this is the substance of the new housing strategy, which Sarah and I will get to in a second after we've discussed the process story. And the process story is, the minister, is not in the country is the obvious process story. Or the minister came up with this after a row with the Taoiseach. That's another process story. And it's not focusing on the message. So you've got a whole bunch of journalists advising the government. Not one of them was able to say, you should probably have the minister here. The minister, for the record, is attending a conference in London called Irish Housing Seminar, Policy, Capital and Opportunity. It's being held in Davies Stockbrokers on Gresham Street in London, where presumably he's going to tell a load of people with money that there's great financial opportunities to invest in housing in Ireland.
Then launch it on a different day. Like, I follow Gavin Riley, for example, who works for Virgin Media, on Instagram and a couple of other things. And I'm almost positive, I can't be corrected on this, but I'm almost positive from reading his Instagram that he missed a friend's wedding because he was reporting on the presidential election count. I'm almost positive. My understanding was that there was a wedding with somebody very close to him, so he was sharing it on his social media. And I looked and I thought, oh yeah, fair play. In fairness, he has to be at the presidential thing, but he is missing a wedding. God love him, whatever. The point is, people's jobs mean they miss things, or they have to work. So if the conference in London is an immovable thing, you move the launch of the campaign or the launch of the policy to yesterday. It's not that deep, John.
You also don't launch things on Thursdays, just as a general rule.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to launch things like, you launch, it's a great day to launch something is Monday afternoon, because generally
Get the whole week.
Tuesdays get you good coverage and it's the middle of the week and kind of like, it's great. Mondays is the day to launch something because you get the Tuesday papers. And it's the start of the week. Anyway, they haven't done that, but let's talk about the policy itself. The policy has abolished all government housing targets altogether. So there are no more targets. This is the government who told us they'd build 15,000 houses a year, 18,000, 23, 25, 30,000. They just said, no, we're giving up. No more targets on housing. What do you make of that?
I think somebody realised that they were getting a lot of heat for the missed targets all the time, and they decided that they were, making a rod for their own back. So they just got rid of them. I believe something similar I believe something similar will be done with our climate targets as well.
Oh, that will definitely happen. But it just goes back to this business of political communications to me. I mean, like, these are minor things. By themselves, they're not going to change the political trajectory of the state or the political parties or anything like that. But like, if you are a highly paid former journalist working for the government, like, the way you develop a communication strategy on housing is you say, how many houses can we build this year if we really put the shoulder to the wheel? And they come back and they say, 25,000, maybe. And then you say, well, what will our target be? And you've got two options. You can go, we'd be really ambitious and we can hit 26,000. Or you can do, we'll say our target is 18,000. And then, you know what? By the end of the year, housing is ahead of target. But instead they've constantly, this whole bit. I mean, they're right to abolish the targets, but it's humiliating.
Yeah, but they're doing it so early on in the government term that I don't think that there'll be much consequences. They shouldn't have had targets in the first place. And also, I even question, frankly, I mean, housing is such a multi-dimensional problem in Ireland. There's problem with rent for renters. There's problem for buyers. There's problem for sellers. There's problems with the stock for rent and for, there's just loads of, there's multi factors to this problem. And so I kind of think that the targets and those numbers are really just a smoke screen for actually, there's no silver bullet for the housing problem. There has to be a plan that has multi different elements to it. And I think that targets and big numbers like that are really just a way of distracting the public from the fact that you're really all out of ideas on housing. So you just keep screaming, we're building more houses and we're doing this and whatever. But loads of the problems are regulatory. Loads of the problems are with objections. Loads of the problems are other things. And you're not really able to face or deal with any of them. So you just keep shouting about big numbers and targets.
So I have a theory on housing and why it's such an intractable problem, and I think that has nothing to do with housing at all. This is half-baked now. I'm going to give you my half-baked theory. It's not fully thought out, so it might be stupid. But my theory on housing is that it's not a housing problem, it's a money problem.
Right.
It's that basically interest rates are so low, returns on investments are so low, inflation is running at a level where if you leave money in the bank for years, it loses value. The places for big investment companies to put their money are so limited because for the last decade or more, the European Central Bank and the American Fed have been pumping more money into the economy, constantly quantitative easing, pushing out more and more cash and causing inflation. And there's a reason why, German pension funds are putting their money into Irish housing and apartments in London and all the rest of it. And it's because that is the only safe return on investment. And that actually this is a currency problem. It's a problem with the fact that, safe places to put your money have completely evaporated if you want to get a decent return over, say, 20, 30 years. And the safest way to do it is for like German firemen's pension funds to become property investors in Dublin in a way they never would have done in previous generations. I think that's a massive problem. And it's a systemic problem that's too big for anyone to face. But I don't think it's a coincidence that these problems are emerging globally. I mean, housing is a problem in Canada. It's a problem in parts of the US. It's a problem in France. It's a problem housing is not, Ireland's not the only country with a housing crisis. And you think, it's all immigration. A big part of it is immigration in Ireland. But a big part of it is competition, I think. Somebody smarter than me in the comments write into me if I'm right about the theory. But that's what I think.
I think you should get a job in the Department of Housing. And in the first day, you should have suggested the minister doesn't leave the country on the day that he's launching a housing policy. And then your second idea should be that.
Well, yeah, that will require more than that. I mean, if I was advising the Minister for Housing on what to do, I mean, there's a bunch of things I would do. I mean, I just mainly abolish things. I'd abolish rent caps. I'd abolish rent pressure zones. I'd abolish a lot of the residential tenancies board. I'd abolish the whole lot of it. And I would say, bring back bedsits, bring back people who renting out the loft in their granny's garden if they want to do that.
Overshop living.
Yeah, overshop living. All of that stuff. Let people live where they want to live. Let people buy housing, live in, because
let people build a thing in their garden for their kids to live in. Like they're making people pull things down.
Yep.
This kind of shit.
Yeah. Let people and the biggest thing I do, because I'm regressive and I hate the environment, but also because I've got common sense, is I would reduce building energy efficiency standards. This nonsense has driven up the cost of construction more than anything else. Like, most of us now, Sarah, I've been to your house. You haven't been to mine because it's in the middle of nowhere. But both of us live in houses that are pretty nice houses, but would be illegal to build today. It would not be legal to build your house today, and it wouldn't be legal to build my house today, because though they were built in the
fire.
Well, yours has a fire. Mine actually, there's a fireplace right here to my right. It wouldn't be legal to build this house today because it's not up to the right energy efficiency standards, and that is driving up the price and the cost.
They'll take my open fire from my hot, sweaty hand, John. I love a fire. Well, it's just cold dead hand. I love a fire. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. It wouldn't meet the standards. It makes the BER rating much lower if you have a fire.
Yeah, exactly. And so all these minimum BER ratings and what have you for building houses, people can't build the houses that they want to live in, and it's taking longer to build them. And there's planning permissions and there's all sorts of things. So years ago, I was in Texas. Texas is great, and in Texas, which is a fully functioning society. Okay, there's some crazy things happen in Texas. But for a long time, and I don't know whether this has changed, maybe it has, but for a long time, Texas was an entire state of like 40 million people with no planning permission. You did not have to apply to the government if you wanted to build something on your own land.
But if you're in the middle of nowhere, whose business is it?
Exactly.
I'd say he
And I'm
ended
not
up with
saying
a
we do
few.
that.
No, I'd say he ended up with a few corkers though in terms of housing. Wasn't there a trend online to put in "man in Texas" and then see what Google and then because there were so many kind of mad stories, "man in
No, that's
Texas,"
Florida man.
Florida man, Florida man.
Florida man.
I'm
Yeah,
getting mixed
it's
up.
fun. If you've never done, folks, and you listen to the podcast, just go to Google and put in the words Florida man and see what comes up. And it's always something incredible, like,
Wrestles a
Florida
crocodile
man.
to death. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Florida man having affair with panda. No, it's mad stuff. Anyway, it is a state of millions and millions of people, but it seems to attract really wacky people. So that's been a meme for years. Florida man. All right. Speaking of Florida man, Florida man is got bad news this week, as did every other man in the world, in that Vogue article by Shantae. What's her name? I'll get her name in a second. If you give me that. Basically saying that boyfriends are uncool. Did you read this article, Sarah?
We did.
And what did you make of it? Shantae Joseph, that's her name. I apologize.
I don't know what's wrong with people anymore.
So the basic, yeah, if you're one of these people who, I mean, I appreciate a lot of people listening to the podcast will know what we're talking about, right? But if you don't, this is an article written in Vogue magazine, and I think it's fascinating to me that just because this article was written in Vogue magazine, it went super international. I mean, if it written in the Irish Independent, no one would have cared. If it were written in the Daily Telegraph, no one would have cared. Those are not small newspapers. But Vogue, because it has this kind of cachet as being kind of like, a think magazine for women. Is that fair? Do you read Vogue generally?
No. I don't
Well, a
think
certain
I'm their
kind of woman.
I don't think I'm their target audience. I mean, Vogue, Glamour magazine, Glamour Woman of the Year last week on their magazine had 10 men dressed up as women. So I don't think I'm the target audience of any of these magazines, John.
Look, that's the thing about us men. We're better at everything, including being women. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the article. Shantae Joseph, this woman, she basically says that more and more women are kind of, if they have a boyfriend, they're hiding it. They're not sharing it on social media. They're not putting it on their Instagram. They're not going public with it because it's embarrassing, and other women are embarrassed by women who have boyfriends. And this is apparently a trend now amongst, not obviously you and I, but amongst kind of like the younger generation, the people in the 20s, the trendsetters. They're embarrassed to have boyfriends. The article went on to say there is no shame in a bit of heterofatalism, which is the idea that like all heterosexual relationships are doomed to be miserable for the woman. And there's also no shame in simply not trying to have a relationship and living your best single life for life, which I think is just about the most miserable thing I have ever heard discussed. It's like something out of 1984. That's what I think.
Well, first of all, there has been much analysis done on people remaining single forever, and they don't tend to be that happy most of the time. Second of all, I think this is just another iteration of this sort of man-hating, any woman who's in a heterosexual marriage is, destined to be a trad wife and live a life of service to her husband and all of this kind of garbage that they go on with. But really, they're just all so miserable. Miserable. Don't get a boyfriend. Don't show your boyfriend. It's just like somewhere along the way, this sort of zeitgeist of being a young person, relationships or whatever, got kind of taken over by the fat, angry cat lady girls.
It's bizarre, and it's not only the girls, because you get a similar reaction amongst the young men. It's like,
but that's completely different. Go on, sorry.
Oh, it is completely different. But it's the conflict. It's the conflict between the two that's emerging. So, like, but if you just look, stepping back from the conflict moment, if you look at the figures, and of course, all this starts in America, but there's definitely evidence of it happening in Ireland and in other European countries. Like, young people are shagging less. That's just brought in out there. There's much less sex. There's much less sex for people in their 20s. They are pairing later, if at all. They are avoiding marriage. They're not doing as many illicit drugs. They're not drinking as much. They're not smoking as much. and they seem to be spending all their time on their phones moping about how lonely they are. It's I mean, is it getting to the point where parents are going to have to say to their kids, go out, get drunk and have sex behind the bike shed? Like, it's actually, like,
But it's
is it
but
getting
it's
to that
not
point?
just but it's not just that. I mean, like, obviously I'm no psychotherapist or whatever, but I still think that the years of we'll say your dating years are kind of like serious dating, like not messing around being a kid, or kind of 18, 19 to say 35 or whenever you meet somebody that you might marry. It's not just about shagging, to use your word, and all that. It's also that, like, all of those experiences, good and bad, are very formative for your personality, to who you are, to what you want, to what kind of life you
Correct.
want, to different people. And so, like, I think about, I'm not going to tell them on this podcast, but, like, I have funny stories about mad guys that I met that like me or I like them, or, there's all this kind of stuff.
You
And
sure you
it
won't tell one or two? We have time.
no. But they they smooth your edges. You date a couple of guys, you date a couple of girls, you realize, like, for example, I realized after a few years that I found people who weren't particularly motivated career or in just what they wanted to do in life really boring. I knew I wanted to be with somebody who was a bit more like, I want to do this and I want to do that, whether whatever that might be. They want to be a teacher, they want to be the best teacher, they want to, just that kind of thing. I found that really attractive. But it's also just these people, you go on dates, you have your own bullshit, you have your own edges that need to be knocked off. Maybe you're a bit cocky, rude, arrogant, spoiled, whatever. So if you're
Who,
sitting
me?
in your
Never.
so if you're sitting in your room, you did your fair share of dating, John. I've heard all about it from you. If you're sitting in your room looking at your phone, whinging about how you don't want this and you don't want that, and marriage is a terrible thing that's going to do. Frankly, with all due respect to these little girls, they don't know shit about what it's like to be married because they're not married. So they're so arrogant that they will comment on, this life and this is what this becomes. This is what they don't know anything. They don't even know how to date. They don't even know how to have sex, it seems like, because they're not even doing that. So they're sitting at home writing their little articles, posting memes of cats to each other, or whatever they're doing, angry as all hell, and not dating anyone. I think it's a real problem. Misery, absolute misery.
Well, the other thing that's happened, of course, is that so much of this whole dating business now has become like the phone. So it's people are it's like ordering from Just Eat or something, right? You flick through till you find something you like and you hit click. And I think a huge problem for that is that, I mean, if I was in my 20s today, I'd be screwed. Like, I think I'd be screwed because, like, I
would hate it.
But this is the thing. I mean, if I don't remember, I don't think, particularly when I was in my 20s and I dated a few girls, I don't think any of them, if they were, would put their hand in heart and go, yeah, I just thought he was physically irresistible. I just don't think that was what was going on there. You had to rely on a sense of humor or being interesting or something like that. Whereas today it is if you're a woman, you're flicking through a screen and you're looking at faces and you're looking at bios and you're looking at faces and you're looking at bios. And I think I follow a few Substacks that talk about this, and it is frightening. Like, the top 1 or 2% of people are getting like 60% of the matches in some cases. And so you've got all these women who are kind of chasing after, like, 400 or 500 guys maybe in a city who have all the right characteristics. They're the right height, they're the right hair color, they're the right eye color, they've got the right kind of job. And then you've got all the kind of, lads who are, I mean, not even pitiful, like, lads who are abnormally
Just
short or
average.
anything. Just average guys who maybe only hit 3 of the 5 criteria on paper, who aren't getting a look in. And by the way, it's the same for women as well. It's the same for women in that you've got guys who are not finding that the girl who maybe they look at her initially and they think, and not that any guy thinks this, but, like, or her nose is crooked, and then talk to her and finds that she's absolutely hilarious and she looks them in the eye in a particular way. Like,
I can think
so
of
they're not
loads
meeting
of
those
girls. I can think of loads of girls in my 20s and guys who weren't, in large social groupings like college or whatever, who weren't necessarily the best looking, but who were so fun, such crack, that they were like the star of the show. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I remember this.
I think
There was a guy I was in college with. I've told you this story before. And I'm not going to name any names at all, but because I'm saying something that I mean genuinely, like, was not gifted with looks, right? He just wasn't gifted with amazing looks, but he had a particular musical talent. He could sing and he could play the guitar, and he'd go to house parties. He just sit down there and he'd strum the
clean up.
guitar, and by the end of the night, I mean, he could have left with 3 women, three girls in his arm if he wanted to. And you don't get that on the dating apps. That just doesn't
No.
happen. So I don't know how we fix this, but I think.
But I
God,
think
it's all
pretending. But I
baloney
think.
generation.
But the difficulty is that I think too much of the narrative or the discourse in public about why that is, why it's a problem, why people are doing it, is taken over by people like this who don't actually know what they're talking about.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
the problem. That you're talking about a Vogue article that's talking absolute garbage about male and female relationships, marriage, things like that. You're literally the blind leading the blind. It's somebody who is not dating, doesn't know anything about marriage, who's being taken seriously as a commentator on that whole situation. But you're not.
Yeah.
So
Well,
not good news
I
for girls and boys, I think.
alrighty. Well, look, we have 1 week to go until the Battle of Ideas in the RDS on tomorrow week, on the 22nd of November. Almost all of the 400 tickets have gone. I mean, we're going to sell them all. I mean, I can say, we'll have people asking for tickets at the end, which, first of all, is great because we barely promoted it at all. We've only really talked about it on this podcast and a couple of emails I sent to subscribers. And we sold nearly all the tickets, which is enormously encouraging. And I hope to see as many of you there as is humanly possible. Sarah will also be there. So you can come up and say hello to us and tell us, just tell her how wonderful she is and tell me how much you always agree with her and I talk too much over her. But, we're looking forward to seeing you there. And if you do still want tickets, grab them now. They're on the Gript website. You'll find the link there. And we look forward to seeing you. Do you have any other business you want to add to the podcast, Sarah?
No, just it was a very good week for female sports. I don't know if you noticed, but there won't be any more men in the Olympics punching the head off a woman. It's not good.
I just think you've thrown in the towel. You women, you've thrown in the towel. I mean, it's just accepted male superiority in the realm of sport. This
We're
whole
willing
this whole
to
thing
commit
I
to the
can reveal.
steroids on it. Yeah.
This was all you are a secret council of international men, which I occasionally attend. That was decided a couple of years ago to finally get women to admit that men are better than something. The transgender thing in sports was
I think
a way to do it.
I think it was a quiet win, and all the right people were just silent. Nothing. You could hear crickets during the week from all the brainwashed muppets who thought that it was fair to have men swimming against women and boxing against women, etc., etc. But sanity has prevailed just a little bit.
Okay. I went go-karting with some of the team last week, by the way. Just want to say, and I was fastest. Don't want to say that.
God.
I'm very proud of that.
Pathetic. Like, only a man, just as your little dig at women, only a man would try and get that in at the end. Pathetic, John.
Fast.
Go-karting.
Fastest. I did spin once though.
I wasn't there, so.
White River
I did
karting.
spin.
Now, by the way, if you are into your go-karting, White River karting, which is up in Collin and County Louth, has an absolutely amazing track, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. And we will definitely be going back, hopefully with a larger crew than we went with at the weekend. All right, look, we'll leave it there. Have you anything else to add?
No, I'll be there the next time. Just because you beat Fatima in go-karting doesn't make you, Michael Schumacher or whatever.
Maybe basically Ralph Schumacher. Who knows?
Whatever.
All right, look, I
don't know anything.
She has been Sarah. I've been John. We had a big fight about Donald Trump, and I think apart from that, had some interesting conversations, as we always do. This has been the week that really was, and we will see you next week. Thanks as always for listening, and take care. Bye.